I had the most crazy experience I ever had in my life. This was just shortly after my mom died. I went to Italy and I was reading this book called One Italian Summer. And the book is about a girl whose mother dies and they had planned on going to Italy together. And in the book, on her Italian trip, she runs into her mother, but her mother is a young woman and she doesn't know that that's her daughter. And I'm sitting on a stoop in Sorrento reading this book and I just stop and I have this visceral thought, like I just miss her face. And as I look down in the street, there's no one else on the street except for this one woman walking. And it was my mom.
Oh my God.
And I grabbed a photo of this woman walking down the street and I didn't say anything. I just sent it to my sister and she just was like, oh my God. I said, she didn't die. She's on vacation in Italy. She left us.
Welcome to the Acid for Squares podcast. I'm your host, Cody Blue.
And I'm Tanya Dahl. And if you like what we're doing here on Acid for Squares, please like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. It helps us out a lot.
Nailed it.
Nice. I did it this
Yay!
time. Just laughing my way through it, but it's fine. Today on the show, we have my dear friend, the most beautiful, magical woman ever, Miss Jessimae Peluso.
Jessimae.
Hi!
Round of applause.
I'm so excited to be inside your spaceship.
Yes!
You are. Well,
Yeah.
we are so excited to have you
It
inside your
feels
spaceship.
great in here.
Okay, I just want to start this off by explaining how Jesse and I met. So, back in the day, there was a show called Minute to Win It.
Really? You guys met on Minute to Win
this
It?
show.
Yes!
You met on Minute to Win
We met.
Do you know Minute to Win It?
Remember
It?
this?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Where you have like a minute to do like some weird like party game.
Yeah, nothing that will help anybody at the end of the world. If anything, it might cause the end of the world. These stupid
It's true.
games.
Yeah, and we were training at the CVS lot or something like that. They had
Yeah.
us train for like over a weekend. They were like, oh, like 3
It was
days
2
training on all the
weeks.
games. Was it that long?
It was 2 weeks. It was 8 hours a day, 2 weeks long.
Oh my
It was like,
God.
I think we entered a child labor camp for NBC.
They were like, you guys are in your early 20s. You're fine.
Every time we ever, in the history of a relationship, watched a game show, she'll just start being like, let me tell you about Minute to Win It.
Well, because I ended up injuring my back on like the third day of training. They were like, I swear they had it against me. I'm telling you.
Yeah, they took you out of the
Because
game.
They were
Was she
following
as
me
good as she
around.
says?
They were
Oh.
following me around and they were like, you know, you seem really good at this. We want to bring you over to this new game we have. And they had it where literally you have to pop balloons with your butt against like slamming your butt into like
A concrete
cement?
floor. They're like, go over to
Concrete
this
floor.
wet concrete floor and fall.
Yes, and in 60 seconds, pop all these balloons. So I literally do it, and my back just like breaks, and I'm like, oh my God, and can't move. I have to go to the hospital. I had to wear a back brace for a couple months. It sucked. But Jesse got on the show, and they said you were a horse trainer.
A horse trainer?
Did they say you were a horse trainer?
They wouldn't let me be honest about being a stand-up comedian because they said America wouldn't like it.
What?
And then they said I was, look, NBC did it, okay? They said I was a horse trainer. Doesn't stop there. That trained horses to be good around special needs children.
Wait,
Oh my
they
God.
made up
That's such an elaborate lie.
Aren't they always elaborate?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Don't you
mean-
remember the special needs part?
No, I don't remember.
I was like, that
part.
seems like we could have just stopped at the horse.
It's crossing a line a bit.
So
bit.
much of a line. And it was like,
For horses and special needs children.
my assistant recently found those clips
Oh my God.
of us on Minute to Win
Yeah.
It. And I made it like 3 games.
Yeah.
You can't, you feel like an idiot at that point because it's like rolling pencils on a floor.
Oh, also, they know what you're good at and what you're not good at. This is why they do the testing in the beginning. They're like, we're going to teach you all the games. Lies. They fucking record the entire thing.
Yeah, they do statistics.
And they're like, Jesse's really bad at this game. And then they put you on that. They're like, don't let her get past $100,000. Don't let her get past whatever. And like
Yeah.
give you that game. Like jerks.
It was like Severance. It's like, is somebody watching us? Where are we? Am I on the inside or the outside? What is this?
So this is how you two became friends?
Oh,
Yeah, that's how we
Instant.
met. Yeah, instant.
I was like, this girl broke her back on these balloons. I need to know her forever.
And
Just the gusto.
And this poor horse trainer has been neglecting all the
I'm over here
children in
helping
need.
disabled children. I'm helping disabled children. By the way, wouldn't you want me to win if that's my story?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Come on
They
now.
should have had you win then.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, that was 2 weeks of training, girl.
That's
it was
insane.
like military.
It did feel like
It was
military.
a huge warehouse with all those games.
And they made us sign away our lives, basically.
That's right.
They
I
were
would
like,
love to see
here's
that.
this contract. And it's like, you can never sue us. You can never ask any questions. You can never whatever. It's like, oh, okay. Because I remember after I hurt my back, I was like, can you guys pay for my doctor's bills? They're like, we don't owe you anything. And I was
They didn't
like,
pay for anything?
No, nothing. Not nothing.
Isn't that so fun? The entertainment industry is so fun.
So fun.
Everyone should come out to LA and enjoy it.
It's super ethical. Everything
ethical.
is just,
They care about you so much.
honest.
Yeah.
It's good work.
It's soul
Consistent,
cleansing.
soul cleansing. It helps others.
It's sober.
Sober.
Yeah,
it's
so sober.
It's sobering.
I mean, this is one of the reasons we want to leave Los Angeles, or we are actually.
I
We're in the
know.
process of moving to North Carolina, which is so crazy. But this industry, man, entertainment.
It's rough.
Oy,
We were talking about it before. Like, I feel like it's rough out here because people's identity gets so wrapped up in what they do and who they are when they do what they do that they forget who they are
yeah.
down to the core.
Yep.
And then you become a performative thing, and then you placate to that part of yourself instead of nourishing the part of you that first gave birth to the idea of you wanting to play in the first place.
Right.
Which is where it all came from play.
Right.
At least for me.
And then also everyone is trying, it feels kind of like everyone's trying to get something out of you.
Yes.
It's like, what can you offer me? What can you do for me? And because everyone's trying to fulfill their dreams. So it's not like a normal place where people are just like living their normal lives and like, oh, my work is not over consuming my entire existence and not my personality. It's just like something I do and then I have a life after it. It's pretty weird.
It is weird. Like in other towns, you can go to a park and people are just in a park doing park stuff. Here you have people shooting a low budget TikTok film with a drone flyover. And it's Sunday at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
And some girl's doing like influencer stuff in a hammock between two trees. And there's a homeless man jerking off in the distance.
Yeah, don't forget all the tents everywhere.
It's literally Grand Theft Auto. This city is Grand Theft Auto.
Oh my God, the craziest thing is right down the street from here, there is a 7-Eleven that has one of those security cameras that are like mobile, so they come into like a parking lot. And well, I mean, it's not like
I'm just picturing it. I'm like,
beep, beep, no.
those little things that deliver food. I'm picturing that. I'm like, that sounds kind of cool. I want to go over there.
It's kind of static. But anyways, this thing, because the area, it's right next to a park and there's tons of like homeless camps there. They have blasting out of this security camera thing that apparently has a speaker also, classical music, blasting. It is so apocalyptic. It's like all these like fentanyl people like bent over and it's like,
allegedly it reduces the crime. So, but like the picture of this 7-Eleven with like fentanyl zombies walking around and classical music blasting. And this is like our like romp around the local park.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things that we were like, all right,
We gotta go.
we're out.
Sounds like the beginning of like a Zack Snyder film.
Yeah, it's dark.
It's very trippy.
Do you think this place has changed since you first been here?
Yeah. I think everyone's changed. The world changed. Our view of what the world was and what the world should be changed. The way we interact with one another changed. Entertainment changed. People don't realize the value of entertainment and good entertainment. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in the industry, but arts in general are so important for humanity. I think we've seen in the past few years, our humanity has changed. And when the entertainment industry struggles to be able to create, that just exacerbates the issue. So I feel like everyone's sort of become disjointed on a societal level, and also the entertainment industry becoming disjointed, and people struggle. I think people are struggling to find joy more.
Right.
I feel like it's not as readily available, or at least that's what they're telling themselves, that, it's harder to get.
But do you think that's social media? Because everyone, over the past however many years, like 10 years, it started off with everybody just posting their highlight reel, and they still kind of do.
Yeah.
So everyone's basing their life off of what other people are doing instead of living and also realizing that everyone's going through shit. Like there's not one person that doesn't have crazy stuff happening. It's just we're all suffering in our own individual ways, and we're all also living in our own individual ways. But this like comparison thing it truly is the thief of joy.
It is. And it is part of that. I do think social media is contributing to our demise and us not experiencing as much joy. And it's strange because we're not relating to one another. We're not out being with each other as much as we used to be. And I find people have a hard time like communicating and just being with one another now. It's really bizarre. It's really strange. But then when you get out there, you realize the rest of the world and the country even isn't as bad as it appears to be on social media. So just as much as it's never as good, it's never as bad.
Right.
You know?
It's a weird thing because, we're in Hollywood also.
Streets are on fire!
Yep, literally. And
metaphorically and literally.
Yeah. And this has been, Acid for Squares has been like the most like digital thing I've been a part of. And I'm getting like a crash course on what makes things go viral. And one of the most fascinating things is seeing that if you say something negative or wrong, anything that starts conflict, people start going at each other in the comment section. And that's what pushes virality. And it's like, oh, of course, this is one of the reasons why the algorithm's so negative is
oh my gosh.
That's what
I didn't know that.
It's like they say, the haters make you famous.
It's like the pink bubble underneath the city in Ghostbusters.
What?
Remember the goo under the city in Ghostbusters?
Why do I not remember this? No.
So all the energetic field under the city, there was a river that sort of was a source of the energetic field in the movie Ghostbusters that was the portal to all of the ghosts, essentially, and like the worst guy. And the river grew with anger, and it grew stronger with anger.
Wow. But
it also grew better and more joyful with music. And so I feel like it's kind of like that in life, you know? It's like, what are you feeding? Whatever you feed is going to breed.
100%.
You know?
100%.
Did that answer anything?
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
It absolutely made sense.
You know, this is like this show. We mostly talk about like a lot of paranormal, psycho-spiritual. People talk psychedelic, near-death experiences, abductees, things like that.
Yes.
But one of the things about your comedy is you are very like sneaky wise. like you're hilarious. You'll like call out hypocrisies on one end and sort of make fun of them, but like. You just say that some insanely profound shit.
She's a smart girl.
She's smart.
She's such a smart girl.
She's a smart girl.
They like to educate women now. It's crazy. No, I appreciate that.
Well,
I do.
I mean, everything you've done with, and I mentioned it to you before we got on, but everything you've done around like helping people grieve and doing it in a really comedic and you know, just it's a way that I've never heard anybody talk about grieving. And we were just talking about your new podcast as well. That it's all about, I mean, what's it called again?
It's Dying Laughing with Jessimae. It's right where Sharp Tongue is. I'm just evolving the podcast because I've done Sharp Tongue for 10 years.
Wild.
Yeah, 10 years in a few days. And it's so funny because I do believe in every single conversation you have, every single interaction. If you are open to universal language, is a sign and it's a message.
What do you mean universal language?
Well, just the universal oneness and the universe sending you signs. If you're open to that, you'll see them. You'll you know, whatever you start to think will just come to fruition. And so I had this podcast interview with a guy who just didn't prep at all. And to me, not like this, because you guys are friends. I consider this girl family. So it's like, I want to shoot the shit and just chill and be with you guys. But if I'm being asked to do an interview, I expect you to do a little due diligence. I'm not Joan Rivers, but I've worked hard. And if you want me on your show, just at least look a few things up. And so it was clear that he hadn't done that. And it was just a very generic conversation. And I was kind of frustrated by it. I was frustrated by it because I thought, you know, man, I wanted you to just put a little bit of an effort in and show me that you actually cared, that I, you know, took 20 minutes out of my day, even though you're helping me promote my podcast. But I say all this to say because this guy told me something I didn't know about my own podcast. He said, your 10-year anniversary is April 5th. And I didn't even think about that. And I like to think about things in numbers and time. There's a saying that I came across recently that I just thought was so profound. They said, time is the one currency we don't know how much we have left of.
True.
And that we should spend it so wisely in every single moment. And there's a lot of people out there who don't want to put in the work, who are afraid, who are led by fear, who are led by patterns that aren't theirs and led by behaviors that aren't theirs. And I realize it's difficult to come to a place where you're able to be in each moment, alive in each moment. It takes a concerted effort. It's difficult to like be awake and alive and present for whoever you're in front of. So this guy said this to me and I was like, damn, 10 years. It's a full decade. And then I realized my first episode was with my dad.
Oh,
That's the first episode of this show's with my dad too.
What?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Okay, but that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, you know, because we were talking about doubts and being in the vulnerable space and talking about death and all types of death. I thought, oh, this is good. The timing of this is really nice. Like a nice decade, a nice round number for my Virgo ass. You know, I like that, you know, just nice and neat. And I thought, oh, this was the universe being like, you're not going to like this interview, but this interview is going to give you something. And so you can't lead with what you're not going to like and what you're afraid of and the negative part of it and focusing on all of that, because there's always a little nugget of something from each little interaction if you just step back and view and you're like, oh, damn, this guy just gave me a beautiful gift. He released me of feeling insecure and worried. I'm like, I started this podcast with my dad. And the reason why I wanted to evolve it into talking about death and grief is because of losing my dad. That first great profound loss, and how I was able to like laugh through it and find moments of joy and also be led by the heavier moments. Grief is such a gift and there's so much honor with it. If you're able to grieve someone, that means you had a love so fucking profound that you can't let it go. There's no letting it go. It's transforming you. And so many people grieve in silence. So many people grieve and they get swept away like in a fucking emotional riptide and they don't know where to go or what to do or how to get out of it. And joy and humor are my gift. And I hate for that to sound like I think I'm some goofy guru, but it's why I'm here. You know that. I'm a silly bitch.
You are a silly bitch.
And like, I want to use it and put it into a place where I would have felt supported and hearing. And so that's Dying Laughing is going to be ways to entertain your grief. I'm having all sorts of guests on. I had Stamos on.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We saw
By
that.
the way,
Talk about manifestation.
So
Yeah.
if anybody watching doesn't know this, Jessimae has had an obsession and a love for Mr. John Stamos for as long as I've known
You
her.
hear
Probably.
that, Josh?
Are you talking about Jeff, our producer?
Oh, I called you Jeff. That's right. Josh, Jeff. I forgot your name. Can you give me a mocha, please?
No, you're supposed to get him a mocha.
Oh, that's right. We have to get you a coffee.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
Oh my God. So, okay. Yeah. So
Stamos.
you got to meet John Stamos. I remember I was thinking about it. I was like, damn. I was like, how has this not happened yet? I swear the day after I thought that, all of a sudden, there you are. Well, how did this even happen?
She came running to the room, was like, look, she did it.
She met him.
She did it. She celebrated. She
I did
danced.
celebrate.
She threw her fist physically into the air.
You know, they say
Yeah,
a real
look at her.
friend is there for you for the wins as well. They celebrate your wins. We've known of each other for a long time, obviously. I mean, if he didn't know about me, he needs to fire a social media person.
Yeah.
Because even on Girl Code, like I was texting or not texting, like tweeting and stuff. And I think that's where it started. I was just tweeting about him. One time I said, I've typed the word Stamos so much into my phone that when I go to type stamps, it autocorrects to Stamos. And then I said I'd still lick the back of both. So I would tweet shit like that for years, but that's just how we started to get to know of each other. So 10 years of, you know, messaging and tweeting and all of that. And then when my dad died, he actually sent me a message. He was working on Jeff Ross's historical roasts. Stamos was portraying John Wilkes Booth. Saget was Lincoln. And one of my best friends in New York, Yamanika Saunders, who's an amazing comedian, was playing Harriet Tubman.
That's so funny.
So they sent me a video, like the day after my dad died, and he was just like, I'm so sorry, we heard. And he also sent me a message. And then when I knew I was going to evolve the podcast, I'm like, who do I want to be like the first guest? And I thought like my dad was my first true love. And then Stamos was like my childhood love.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to have Stamos on.
So he's your first episode?
He's my first episode.
My heart is so happy for you right now. That is so awesome.
So do you talk? What's different from your old incarnation of your podcast? Is it you focus more on grief?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It's just, I was thinking about that. I was like, what is, because it's the guy who I had the interview with. He's like, I tried to describe your podcast and I couldn't. He was like, it was all over the place, he said. And I was like, ooh. That went, I was like, all over the place. But then I thought, that's kind of mean. Energetically, I'm just kind of a little bit of everything everywhere.
Yeah, but it's real.
It's just you.
Yeah.
So we were talking about like the toxicity of Los Angeles.
Yes.
And the problem is we come here, I'm sure we've all had this experience where we get like stuck in a box and you do something and your reps are like, no, just do this. No, just do this genre. You're this, you're this. I mean, literally Acid for Squares is about dissolving the box. And, Tanya.
I love that. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Right. So Tanya was telling me recently about some scientific study that they did where they like measured the frequency of all these different emotional states. One was like love and hate, and they found authenticity was the highest frequency.
Even higher than love.
I believe that.
100%. And I think that like the cultural evolution around the superficiality, the fraudulence, the fakeness, especially as we're all kind of waking up to it, is moving towards authenticity. Like, who would have guessed that as our attention spans are shortening with the social media, that long form podcasting would be like the antidote to
right.
But it's around that fraudulence, and like nothing is more real than talking about death because it unifies us all.
And
Yes.
also because you do have a couple of episodes, or actually it's like 30 episodes in Sharp Tongue that are about grieving.
Yeah.
And I like listening to you, like especially like the first episode, you're talking about after your mom had passed, and hearing you be so willing to talk about stuff as you were going through the grieving process, I think is the most beautiful thing ever. You're like, okay, these are the different stages of grief, and we're about right here right now.
Yeah.
And just hearing you, it was incredible. It was by far like my favorite of any episode that you've done is just hearing you just be so vulnerable and so like in it, and also doing it for other people, which is so beautiful because people don't talk about grief. And your process, I remember when your dad was passing with dementia and Alzheimer's, I remember watching you like step into this beautiful role of taking people on the journey through this and how hard it was, and the ups and downs and all this stuff, but how you brought such grace into it as you were trying to find ways to ease your dad's pain and all this stuff and being at the hospital. And it was just so beautiful. And it's such a beautiful sweet spot that you have here of vulnerability and like truth, and also bringing lightness and like sunshine to the rain, And so this is like the fact that you're doing this new version of your podcast, I think is such an incredible evolution and so needed right now.
I'm going to listen to that every day before I record what you just said. That was very profound for me to hear because I really appreciate that.
Yeah, Jesse, it's shamanic. You jokingly said, I don't mean to be some goofy guru, but like it is a very ancient wisdom. I forgot who said it, but essentially like the secret to life is to die before you die and discover death isn't real. There's this Tibetan skull meditation where they keep human skulls on their altar, and it's because they believe they're not free to live until they can face death. And so many of us avoid instead of bringing that into our lives. That is the key to unlocking the ability to truly live freely and vulnerably and authentically. It is within the doorway of death, instead of resisting it. So you're doing that. And the fact that you can do it with comedy and levity makes it easier for people to approach it. And because a lot of us, it's super scary, and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's medicine.
Yeah. As a kid, I always imagined death. I was kind of obsessed with it. Specifically, after my mom died, I remembered ruminating over both of my parents' deaths when I was a child, when I was like 8. That young, I would think about them dying often.
Wow.
Probably more than most kids. And it wasn't even like, I wasn't doing it to scare myself. It just was happening naturally. Oddly, throughout the decades of that and doing that, I think it was my way of preparing myself to release them and coming to terms with it. Because I believe the same, that we need to face death in a graceful way and in a way where it's not an ending. And it's so hard for us to understand that. Psychedelics help.
Yeah.
So I think psychedelics are very important to help people have ego death and to also face death in a different way and view it in the multidimensional experience that it is. And
that's their main benefit.
Exactly. And Alan Watts has this really great teaching where he talks about viewing skulls and looking at skulls and how important it is to face death and look at it from that perspective. And then, of course, you mix in our Western medicine and our Western ideology surrounding life and death, which is just so limited in its puritanical teachings and limited in its modern ideologies. For me, it's like, okay, there's the Kubler-Ross method and the Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grieving. And we've made this beautiful emotional experience some mathematical graph. So grieving is just these stages. That's kind of like why when I was doing the episodes when my mom was dying and I was doing the podcast, I thought, okay, well, this is the stage I'm supposed to be in, but I feel all the other stages. And then when you're in another stage that you're supposed to be in, you're in the first one. And so you learn that it's all very a personal experience going through grief.
Right. Who's Kubler-Ross?
Kubler-Ross were two doctors that discovered, they were psychologists and maybe a psychiatrist that discovered kind of what the consistent emotional stages were after someone experienced a loss or a death. Basically, it became the framework for grieving, the stages of grief.
Can you explain those linearly?
Well, there's denial, which is usually the first stage where you're just in shock of the event. And I do believe in that. It's kind of like when you're in like a car accident or something really traumatic. You don't necessarily remember everything.
Yeah.
That's like a survival tactic for your brain. We got to let me just look them up because I can't remember them because I've sort of shunned them from my brain because I feel like there's so many other dimensions of grieving and loss that, like I was saying, it can't just be these 5 stages.
What are what's bargaining?
Bargaining is when you're trying, I went through that and you probably have gone through it just in all different levels of grief where you are just, if I could have done this, if I just had said the one thing, maybe if I didn't leave as early, or it's kind of like regret. It's kind of like a form of regret.
Oh yeah, definitely been there.
Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Those are the 5, but then there's also thought to be 7 stages: shock and denial, pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, depression, reconstruction, and then acceptance. So that's a more modern stage of grief, of explaining grief.
Do you think there's more dimensions than even that 7 state, or is it just non-linear? It's highly personal.
Non-linear, highly personal. And there's also, this beautiful connection to authenticity. They don't talk about the authentic emotions you feel where you're just, and they might be driven by anger. They might be driven by depression or driven by bargaining, but you're in this sort of, I don't give a fuck. I just lost my best fucking friend. I don't care what I look like today. I don't care if I wear makeup. And there's something really beautiful about being so rooted in your constitution in that moment as a human being that you're unaffected by societal standards. That keeps so much of us down because we're not living up to this. I love how Jim Carrey said it, avatar that we've created.
Yeah.
To fit into this, to be a peg in this fucking machine, in this machine that has created a graph for the emotional experience of loving someone. And so, yes, you will experience those stages, but there's so much more beauty to it. You'll get these vivid memories that feel like experiences that you forgot about. You'll talk to your parents in a way that you didn't speak to them, or your loved ones in a way that you didn't speak about them or to them while they were living. You learn things about people posthumously that you didn't know. My mom sold weed. She called herself Giselle and was giving out weed from the fucking house.
What? You found this out later?
This out after she died.
Oh my God.
That's awesome.
Called herself Giselle, was handing out weed. I was like, where's she getting the weed? This lady bought boxed wine. Now all of a sudden I'm like, this is like Breaking Bad. So there's so much more to it. There's so many more dimensions to the process of grief that we've limited ourselves because I think in the society that we live in, it's just, you get 6 months to lose somebody and that's it. Do you know that in the DSM, which is basically the book that contains all of the mental disorders and psychological mental illnesses, do you know that they consider grieving for a year prolonged grief and that it's a diagnosable, it's something that you could be medicated for.
Prolonged grief?
Prolonged grief, a year.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having someone you've loved for your entire lifetime and they say if you're still sad after a year, there's something wrong with you?
That's
It's
insane.
just because they can sell you a medication that way.
Yeah. Get on Lexapro.
business.
But grief also never ends. Like the loss of somebody is always going to be a loss of somebody. Like friends that I've lost when I was, 13, I still grieve, and you know what I mean? Like, how can you possibly put a time limit on it? That doesn't make any sense.
It's like that chart. It's like death is sacred.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And grief is a part of death, and it's sacred. And you just took all the sacredness out of it with that chart. You just made it this linear, intellectual, very emotionless, sterile thing, as opposed to an experience. And by creating that box around grief, you are essentially creating a resistance that will lead to a deprivation of that person having other experiences within the world of grief, within the world of honoring and everything you just said, your loved one. It is incredibly reductive. Yeah, I've never thought of that.
Yes.
But also, though, this was I don't know when this was created, but also, if you look at like our parents or our grandparents or whatever, they didn't even have the ability to talk about grief.
Right.
It was like you push it down. Right. So for somebody like that, having maybe a list of being like, here's some of the things you might experience would be helpful.
Yes.
Nowadays, like our generation, younger generations, like we're fine with talking about our emotions and fine with talking about what's going on. But for our like older generations, they didn't have that luxury.
I agree.
And so a list like that makes a lot more sense for somebody in that state where they're like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on with me. I feel like I'm losing my mind. And they see this list and they're like, oh, well, I get it. This is something, I didn't realize that was something I could go through. So it's both.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely. I think it was 50s or 60s.
Well,
so during that time where, dads, their emotions were in a glass and moms were in the bathroom powdering their nose and covering up the bruise.
You mentioned a few things around memories coming back. Finding out information about them, having conversations with them, a deepening of spirituality. Did your spirituality deepen?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
It changed me. It changed every fiber of who I am and who was in my life, how I showed up for people in my life, how I walked.
How so?
It broke me. It broke me apart, and it forced me to give up the avatar, and it forced me to give up some of the performative side of me and to really make a choice to try to live in the authenticity a little bit more and find a home there, because nothing else mattered. After they were gone, nothing mattered. And that's a real thing. Things just didn't matter for a while. Just being there and feeling their void from my life was all I could think about. And then the real question that I kept asking myself is, who am I if I'm not theirs? Who am I if I'm not somebody's daughter? Who am I without Joe Peluso and without Nancy Finley?
But you'll always be their daughter.
I'll always be their daughter.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
Still
also
are.
something you talk about on your podcast. You were talking about how not knowing how to refer to them, if they, they are this, or they were or are
Past,
now. I'm
present,
past, present, whatever.
tense.
But for me, like when I talk about even friends or loved ones or family or whoever who've passed, I still believe that they're still here, just like in another form. So I still talk about them in the present tense, if that makes sense. Like for my grandma, I'm like, she is this. Like she always, because that, as long as her energy is still with me and the memories and whatever form she's in now, like she still is that being.
Yes.
Like, so
when you think about it, like there's this poem about death, and basically the idea of it is I'm right around the corner. I'm not gone. I'm in the other room. I haven't left. I'm down the street.
Absolutely.
I won't be gone forever. I'm just out of your sight for now.
Absolutely.
And that's all it really is.
God, that does feel like that. That's wild.
And we're all kind of, Ram Dass, used to say we're all walking each other home.
100%. 100%. I like to think of it as, I mean, this is gonna sound crazy, but like I think of death in the terms of like birth. And this comes from having personal experiences in medicine ceremonies where I've had the experience of dying and kind of popping out on the other side. But I think just like birth, you're shot out of some cosmic pussy, all disoriented.
Nice.
And you come into this fucking room, you have no idea what the fuck's going on, but there's all these smiling faces looking at you and you don't know who they are, but they know who you are and they're going to help you. And I think it's the same way with death. And I think, you know, when you hear people's stories of dying and NDEs and you pop out and they see their loved ones, they're there to greet them. And, you know, I think it's just like that. You know, I think this is like waking up from a dream. We're getting off a roller coaster. I think just, whoa, we pass, we go, that was so wild. That was so fast. That was so crazy. Oh my God. And I think some of us might say, you know, let's do it again. But
it's just a blip in time.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like I know that. I know they're still here with us. I believe, it's not even believe, like I know it. Like it's weird. I know it sounds crazy, but.
No, I agree. I had the most crazy experience I ever had in my life. I was in Italy after my mom died. I had just come across a book that I took on the trip with me, and this other saying that I wish I could remember whose it was, but someone will find it and tell us in the comments. The girl becomes a woman when the mother dies. And that really sat with me. And this was just shortly after my mom died. I went to Italy and I was reading this book called One Italian Summer. And the book is about a girl whose mother dies and they had planned on going to Italy together. Now, my mother and I hadn't planned to go to Italy. I just went with my other family members. And in the book, on her Italian trip, she runs into her mother, but her mother is a young woman and she doesn't know that that's her daughter. And it's this really beautiful novel about loss and grief and sort of a similar conversation of they're never really gone. They're around us in different ways, shapes, and forms. And I'm sitting on a stoop in Sorrento reading this book, having cappuccino. 9 o'clock in the morning, streets are kind of quiet after the morning rush down below. And I'm reading the book and I just stop and I have this visceral thought, like I just miss her face. I just want to see her face. I had this thought to myself. And as I look down in the street, there's no one else on the street except for this one woman walking. I could only see her from the side, but she was right below my stoop. And it was my mom.
Oh my God.
In physical form. And I know this sounds crazy.
It doesn't.
I can't explain it. I was so locked in on this woman. She walked like her. She had a dress like her. She had the same bag, the same strut, the same hair. The way the wind moved from my mother's hair moved to this woman's hair. And I'm just locked in on her. And I had a brief thought of I have to go down to her. And then I thought that's not what this is for. This isn't for you to get her back. It's for you to realize you never lost her.
Yeah.
She's not going anywhere. If you're connected to a moment, you can access these people you love.
Yeah.
If you keep your heart open, and that sounds so simplistic, but guess what? Everyone in the world is trying to get back to a simpler fucking life. There's truth in simplicity. And in this moment where I was just reading this book and had an authentic yearning, I got it. And I grabbed a photo of this woman walking down the street and I didn't say anything. I just sent it to my sister and she just was like, oh my God. I said, she didn't die, bitch. She's on vacation in Italy. She left us. Wasn't an accident. It was a choice.
Giselle out.
Giselle out. She out here selling Sorrento weed to fucking Italian fishermen.
Yeah, but you know what's so crazy?
Giselle out.
If you have that's the thing, is like when you love someone so deeply and they pass the other side, it gives you a doorway into the other side. And it's so when you have those experiences where there's like, it's like a glitch in the matrix and you can never communicate it to someone because you're like, I read the line in the book. I looked up, I had the thought and the feeling, and then I saw the thing, and the timing is what, and you try to tell people and almost like, and then eventually it just becomes a story you tell and it completely loses, but it's like a miracle, you know? I mean, we had it with your grandma. We've talked about it.
Yeah, we've talked about it, but a couple days after my grandma passed, because Cody was in New York when my grandma passed, and she's like my other mom. So Cody came home, and we went to go get some food, and when we came back, it smelled like her perfume right in front of the door, like so strong. And the funny thing is that when she passed, me and my cousins went and sprayed her with a White Diamonds perfume.
Oh my God.
Because it was a Friday night. And we're like, of course she passed away on a Friday night. She's going to go out partying like on the other side. And so we were like, all right, Grandma, we're going to spray you. Like, you know, she had passed already, but like we had sprayed her with the White Diamonds. And so I feel like it was her being like, bitch, you sprayed me too much. But she was just like, snatch. And I'm like, that's funny. That was really cool and really, really funny because it was so strong. The White Diamonds was so strong.
What famous actress?
Elizabeth Taylor.
Yes. White Diamonds. That's such an iconic scent.
Yeah.
That is so. My mom's was Nina, something, Le Air du Temps, the air of time. And it was like this, like a dove. I mean, it kind of looked like a pigeon, but the bottle was like a dove.
Pigeons are doves, right?
Yeah, they're the doves of the city. They're like city doves. Smell is amazing. Smell is one of the strongest links to memory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Smell can kick in memory more than anything.
Why is
it's pretty
that?
wild. It's the part of the brain that it connects to. Look at me trying to sound like a doctor. I think it just has to do with the part of the brain. It's so wild. And music's really a language, obviously, but it can connect you to times that you totally forgot about. You know, you hear a song and you're like transported right back to that.
Do you want to hear something
era.
weird on that?
Yes.
On that note? So you know how there's all these people with foot fetishes?
Yes.
So apparently where your like the genital part of your brain is sits right next to the foot part. So sometimes people's wires get crossed and that's why they are aroused by feet.
Is this your excuse why you're into feet?
Yeah, because
I'm here to tell everyone.
she had to get that one in. We were talking about death and music, and she's like, guys, foot
Same
fetishes.
thing. I have a foot fetish, and it's because my foot part of my brain is resting on my fetish part. Continue.
Tanya, you trying to tell me something?
Yes.
All the pervs in the chat are like, see? It's not my fault because my brain's resting on the other part of the brain.
It's science, guys. It's science.
It's not my fault. Foot fold's near my fetish fold.
I'm telling you, she's going to end up using this in the stand-up.
I'm going to use it for sure.
I had to. She was talking about the scent thing being linked to memories. And I was like,
That's
oh
crazy.
yeah, they're linked. I forgot.
You know, the human head weighs 8 pounds.
What did you say? Doctor. The human head.
What was that from?
From
The kid,
Tom
Jerry
Cruise.
Maguire?
Yeah.
Jerry Maguire. The little kid just out of nowhere says the human.
dropping facts.
I have no idea what's going on.
Cody. This is usually Cody's thing. He normally drops
What?
weird facts.
What? I don't know what's happening.
He wanted to be the youngest
I heard
scientist
Tom
or
Cruise.
zoologist. No, the youngest zoologist. And so he used to go around saying facts until kids made fun of him. And then he was like, never mind, I can't be the youngest zoologist.
It wasn't
and he stopped
kids. It
doing
was two kids, Derek O'Reilly and Lou Pizzicello.
Oh,
You
we
guys are jerks.
dropped the government.
Oh.
Boom, boom.
Jeff, you might want to numb those out. Numb them out, bud. Throw on the old
They were my best
bleep.
friends, and they would sing Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill, and then eventually I was like, I don't like science. Like, that's not me. I like football.
And there's where you split from your integrity.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
authenticity.
We're coming back full circle. Now I love science.
I was really concerned that the whole podcast is going to be you and I just laughing, half talking through memories, and him just going.
It's a little of that.
It's okay. It's on and off.
I heard foot fetish, Tom Cruise,
and us just wheezing.
It's snorting.
She said you two would just laugh together.
What did you want to be when you were a kid?
A babysitter. I had high aspirations, you know?
I have never heard that one.
My mom told me that. I asked her, I said, what did I want to be when I was a kid? She's like, a babysitter. You didn't have high hopes.
She's reasonable. She's a practical woman.
Babysitter. By the way, not that hard, turns out. Not that hard.
Did you ever do it?
I did. You know what? Funny story about that. I went and I babysat this guy's kids. Single dad. 4 children.
Whoa.
Just me.
That's a lot.
I was like 16. The math is not mathing.
Not mathing.
If there's
Girl,
almost
yeah.
as many kids as I am old, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So I get there. There's 3 boys and 1 girl. And I am absolutely and wholeheartedly brutally attacked. Physically attacked by
Whoa.
these kids. Physical attack.
How old?
Ranges
16.
from like, I'm
Oh,
16,
how old are they? Oh.
ranging from like 5 to like 12. They start off kind of fun, and then they just, the only way I can equate it is to like pack animals,
Yeah.
like a group of coyotes.
What happened? I had this happen to me too. What'd they do?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
They
I wanna hear
just
this.
surrounded me like they basically, I was roadkill and they were hawks or what's the other, the critters? Vultures. Because vultures, I feel like hang out in packs. Hawks are solo hunters.
Yeah, that's true.
So vultures. So child vultures attacking me. There's no cell phone. I've got to crawl to a fucking rotary on the wall. I have to climb up the wall.
You were crawling?
Whoa.
Yeah, they were on top of me. They wouldn't stop. They were like tickle torturing me. They were name calling. They were a pack of bullies. And I call the dad. He gave me a number, which I don't. What number did parents give? Like, I'm gonna be at the Chili's, call the front desk.
Because he didn't have cell phones.
Right, so who am I calling?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know who the fuck I called. But I'm like, get Dan on the goddamn phone right now. I called my mom first. I go, Mom, come here. I'm going to die. You guys are killing me. She's like, what? Get over here right now. I don't want to fulfill my dream. This is the wrong dream. This is the wrong dream.
That's usually how it goes.
Yeah. When you actualize, you're like, this isn't what I want. So my mom came over. I called Dan. I'm like, your children are banshees. I am filing a police report. Please come home. So he had to come home early, okay? Came home early. I left. I was bawling. So attacked emotionally, physically, spiritually, on all levels. And my mom, I get in the car. I'm like, Mom, I'm never having kids. Okay, I give these people have one kid. Why are you having 4?
New dream.
What are you trying to prove? Cut to a few years later. My sister brings her boyfriend around. He comes over with his 4 kids. Guess what 4 kids they were?
No.
Wait, what?
My sister, unbeknownst to her, dates the guy with the 4 feral fucking children.
How old are they now?
4 years later, Cody.
Math.
Doesn't stop there. They're all hanging out in the pool. One of the kids pushes off the side of the pool. And I don't know if you know about above ground pools. When you're not that rich, you can't afford digging.
We had those. I had an above ground pool.
Right? Parents are like, digging's too expensive.
It probably is really expensive. Everything's so expensive.
Yeah, you got to get zoning for yard excavation. What if you find the bones like they had in the poltergeist? Then you got to have ancient elders coming in.
Trees.
Pricey.
A curse?
Thing.
A curse?
Yeah.
Can't pay for curses.
We're beyond a cost at this point. We're at curse.
It's not
keep it
in the
above
budget.
ground.
I can't afford this. So the kid's in the pool. He pushes off the side of the pool. Whole pool collapses. And it's not a big, it's a 4-footer, but you don't realize how much water's in a 4-footer until the water's out in the world and shapeless. You know, the shape of water, it felt like a monsoon. And I see that the one that was a ringleader go fucking scooting by in the water down the driveway. I'm like, fuck you, bro. This is what you get. So they were demonic. Yeah, they caused a lot of harm.
Are they still together?
No, they're not.
I had the same thing happen to me in one of my earlier jobs. I first off, was so traumatized I can hardly remember this. So I'm going to be like remembering it as I go. I don't even fully. I've never told this story before, but okay. My early jobs as a teenager was like a mascot for children's parties.
Oh my God.
So like I would be like, you.
By the way, totally Tanya's type.
Yeah.
Like you could be that now and she would fall in love with you.
Oh, I know. I'm aware.
You've got anything furry on your outfit? She's like, okay, sorry, go ahead.
I know. I'm always like, hey, like, do you want me to is there anything, would you like me to look a certain way when we like go on dates? And she's like, just like Gomez Adams. And I'm just like, Gomez Adams? She's like, yeah, or like a Disney villain, like Jafar. I'm like, what happened to you?
Are you familiar with Snuffleupagus?
Yeah, Snuffleupagus. Do you really like furries?
Tell the story. No, I
she's
don't.
just
But also, this episode makes it
puppeteering.
sound like I'm a lot of weird
puppets
shit
in her
happening.
house.
That's okay.
There are a lot of puppets. A lot of
She's
puppets.
a creative.
All right, she is
Yes.
creative.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut your story off.
No,
with
it's
another one
okay.
of Tanya's fetish. Do you guys know that the furry part of the brain sits on the foot part of the brain that sits on part of the fetish part of the brain? I like furry feet.
So I was a mascot for, I would do kids parties with my brother, and we would show up, we worked for this company, and we would do like a few costume changes. And, so I'd be like Elmo, and then you do, you Batman, you do a Power Ranger, whatever. And the kids get a great bang for their buck. They get all of their favorite characters, whatever. So I show up and I change into Elmo. This is my first one, and you go around the party. And then the next wardrobe change is to become Spider-Man and Batman. So I'm Batman and my brother's Spider-Man. So we come out and everyone's like, oh, Spider-Man, Batman. And, we're taking photos and whatever and high-fiving the kids. And then some kids like, Batman, like, come on to the bounce house with me. And then I'm like, because I'm Batman, I guess I didn't say anything. Or I was like, sure, kid. I don't know. That's also creepy. Maybe not.
That's really good Batman.
I feel like
it's a good Batman, but creepy.
I'm like, take me to the bounce house. And so this cute kid takes my hand and skips over to the bounce house, and I skip with them. And I get onto the bounce house, and there's no one on the bounce house, and she said us, and I turn around, and the walls are just lined with like the oldest kids at the party. It's like the 9-year-olds and like the 10-year-olds and the 11-year-olds, and I turn around, and they all start to surround me. And and like the redheaded mullet 11-year-old is like
prick.
Is like, you're not Batman. And I'm like,
not wrong. You're rude, but you're not wrong.
Like, I'm totally Batman. He's like, no, you're not. I'm like, yes, I am. And he's like, prove it. And I'm like, all right, I'll fight you guys. I'm like, I take any one of you guys, and so I don't know. It leads to a one-on-one jamboree brawl with me and a bunch of children, and
in a bouncy house.
In a bouncy house where I would take the kids and I would throw them and fend them off one by one, and it was fun at first, and then they just attacked me like a pack of hyenas, and they held me on the ground, and it was the craziest experience because it was like
it's terrifying.
It was like 20 kids that I never would think, and I can't hit them because I'm working a children's party. So
also they're children,
but I'm Batman. Okay,
it's never stopped me.
When you're Batman,
it starts me.
Batman doesn't give a fuck. Batman would hit a child, okay, but Batman was working a children's party. But yeah, I don't know. It was like insane. Like I had like a little girl like sitting on my chest and like punching me in the face.
Feels like a movie.
It was, and then there was another kid sitting on my stomach punching me in the dick, and they were holding my limbs, and
oh my gosh,
and they were like curb stomping me in the face, and I'm like stop it, let me go, I'm Batman. And then they're trying to rip my mask off to prove that I'm not Batman, and eventually they get my rubber mask off, they rip it off, and they hold it up like it's a severed head, and they sprint out of the bounce house, and they're running around the party like, we got him, and they run over to my brother who's Spider-Man, and they go, Spider-Man, and they go, we know who Batman is, and my brother goes, who is he? And they go, we don't know.
It's like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, seriously.
Jesus.
I quit after that. So I was like, this dream is dead. And I also called my mom, and I didn't call my mom. I just walked home sullenly and was like, I'll never be Batman again.
Nothing like children humbling you.
How old was I don't know, 26 or... No, it's like, I don't know, like 17.
Kids can humble you, man.
Yeah, man.
They are brutally honest.
That's why they're so fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Because they just haven't had that adulted out of them, where we start to do the white lies. I mean, kids lie so much. They lie so much. My niece and nephew lie all the time.
Yeah.
Karina will look right in my eyes and say something. I'm like, is that right, Karina? Is that where the sweatshirt is? She's like, no, I don't have it. I'm like, really? Because you're wearing it. You don't have my sweatshirt that's on right now? She's like, no. And she said to me once, and I put this into my show. She's like, Aunt Jess, why don't you have a boyfriend? And I was like, damn, Karina, I don't know. Like, why don't you have both parents? Why don't you have a full set of teeth? Why don't you worry about what you're missing out of your house and your mouth? Even though she does have both parents, but I wanted her to think that maybe one day she won't.
Oh my God.
And that one day I will too marry someone that's her father's age and be fine. And she'll be lonely. No, they're just such assholes, but they're so cute.
They are very funny. We were just around all of his nieces and nephews, and it was so chaotic. They're just like...
in the moment chaos and ADD.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Like, I know we love to medicate and to identify and diagnose ADD. I feel like we've gone overboard with diagnosis.
Oh, yeah.
You don't say.
Everyone I know every single person I know has a touch of the DDD, of the ADD.
What do you think that is?
I think
Were you diagnosed with ADD?
Yes.
You were?
Uh-huh.
At what age?
4 years ago.
4 years ago. So, it's under, so Tanya as well.
Yeah, I was like 26, 27 when I was diagnosed.
Everyone.
Yeah.
It's underdiagnosed in women, just to say. Just have to throw that
It comes
out.
out as anxiety.
Yay!
So
We're winning at something.
I also diagnosed with ADD, if you couldn't tell by the trajectory of this whole entire
This conversation has
Just
gone
three-
in.
We're just
What fun?
vibrating. Yeah,
So ADD is
exactly.
just fun?
Just a good time.
Yeah, so we're just in the moment and authentic and real and
Yes.
playful. Give
But
me a pill to dull that.
But it doesn't work in a society that wants us to just be little like robots
Well,
and stuff.
what do you think it is? So, do you think it's an evolutionary mutation? Do you think it's an actual disorder? Do you think it's environmental toxins?
I think it could be all of the above.
Yeah, it usually is.
But I do like and have read and listened to Gabor.
Mate.
Yes.
Love that guy.
And he attributes ADD to some sort of dysfunction in stage of childhood, some sort of neglect, trauma, or some sort of like actual event or something, emotional neglect in the formative years of your childhood.
Really?
Yes. He's got this really great book called Scattered Minds, which is kind of a mapping of ADD. I started it 17 times. Because that's how that goes.
Sounds about right.
I have highlighters. I highlight the same section. I'm like, I already highlighted this part. But I feel like the more I sort of understand how my brain works, which is constantly evolving, I realize that there are few things that work consistently for me across the board as a human being and someone who can be self-actualized and be fully present as much as I can. Exercise, hydration, a little bit of microdosing that works for me. Sorry, Dr. Amen.
Joe, tell me about Dr. Amen. that was some low-key Dr. Amen shit. He fucking hates psychedelics. But okay, coming back to that.
Yes.
Keep going.
Quick, keep going.
What works for you?
Also sleep. Prioritizing my sleep. Movement is to me is a way to. Movement is the antidote for anxiety for me, and I think ADD seems to be also closely linked to anxiety.
For women, apparently it shows up as anxiety.
Right. And so if I'm really hydrated, really rested, and doing the things that keep me present, microdosing, journaling, meditation every day, and also moving, those things keep my ADD symptoms at an all-time low.
Yep.
If I drink alcohol, if I drink alcohol every day, if I start to smoke weed every day or not move every day, if I start to get a little imbalanced there, then I start to get those more fiery thoughts and sort of, uncalibrated.
Yep.
But discipline's a bitch, man. Discipline's like, that's self-care, but it's also a muscle to consistently work.
It's 100%.
But it's so boring, but it's also, it is so true. So Cody really brought discipline into my life because he's super, super disciplined with like everything.
Like what? How does that show up?
He's ADD as fuck. So like he's like, I sit down and I meditate. He was like, I eat no sugar. He's very like particular about the things that he does that work for him. And so getting 8 hours of sleep and being very particular about that. And before I was like going to bed at 3 a.m. and waking up at 7 a.m. and be like, I'm fine. No, I wasn't. But, this guy definitely brought a lot more of that into my life.
You seem rooted.
Yeah.
Now.
Yes.
You weren't ever like,
yeah.
I never thought, this girl's.
I probably wasn't.
No, you were always amazing. But when you haven't seen someone for a while, you seem like centered.
Yeah.
That's right, babe.
Stoic.
And
it's all because of Cody.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see how I low-key took credit for that?
No. But there's
babe.
beauty in the union.
Yeah, for sure. And
there's
ayahuasca.
alchemy. And ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca definitely
also,
helped.
I feel like age, like you get wiser and wiser. Like every day we grow, like, and and you said it before about like the priorities shifting. Like, the more we lose, the more just the illusion and the bullshit sort of fades away, the fuckery of it all.
The fuckery.
But the ADD, because I also like to talk about Dr. Amen. So I was, people definitely know this on the show, but I was stuck in ADHD medication and was like a fucking guinea pig. They would rotate me on different drugs until my early 20s. I tried to kick it. And then I actually the side effects of the medication were so bad, I started like, I didn't know it was the drugs making me like, and of course the side effects of ADHD medication is like more ADHD, depression, anxiety, right? So even before I kicked it, I'm going to like all the experts. So I'm looking at the Gabor Mates and Dr. Amen. I went to his clinic. I did his full protocol. And so for
Which
those,
one's Dr. Amen? What does he do?
okay, so Dr. Amen is technically a revolutionary in this field.
In ADHD?
A psychiatrist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He wrote a book called Healing ADHD, which is very prominent. But one of the things he's most known for is, so psychiatry is the only field of medicine that doesn't scan or look at the organ it's treating. So it was a very like progressive thing that he wanted to do brain scans and bring that into psychiatry. He wanted to look at the brain, and he was essentially, called a quack and ostracized from the mainstream medical community for this. And ultimately, though, he created like the Ahmed Clinic, which is this healing center for things like ADHD and OCD and anxiety,
Depression, addiction.
Exactly. So, and one of the things which I've never heard anybody bring up, when I went, this was one of the first, this was the first sort of step I took away from like the traditional allopathic medical model of pharmaceutical drugs. The first step was this guy who is just 1 degree adjacent from the mainstream, that he looked at the brain. And I remember going and sitting in his office in Manhattan, and he has all these brain scans around his office of like rotting, decrepit brains. And one says mushrooms, and the other one's like LSD, and the other one's cannabis. And of course I'm sitting there, I'm like, how could he isolate every one of those brains? They only did that one, substance, because typically people who do one substance do a bunch of things.
Well, let's be real. It was probably some sort of study where they were torturing animals and they were just like pumping them 24/7 with LSD or something like that.
It was a human brain, but I love that the low-key shade you just threw for animal testing,
What was it? Low-key shade. It was real shade.
It was pretty straightforward.
I like it. I'm all about
Which has
that.
happened as well.
But still, Dr. Amen, like,
he does human brains, but that's also going on as well.
How
in
would
other
you
places.
fucked up.
But how could you possibly do that? How can you isolate? That doesn't make any sense.
You do a controlled study.
But they've never done anything
LSD,
ever?
just with someone, what are they, fucking the CIA? They're just
They do
like
sleep
dosing.
studies.
Also, for how long?
With LSD, though?
How long
They're
you
just
want to party? How long you got, babe? We'll order pizza, Let's take a nap. We got a bed. We'll bring in a zebra if you need it.
But maybe the pizza's fucking up your brain. Maybe it's not the mushrooms.
Well, I remember being like, especially at the time I was having my like cannabis epiphany at the time, because I didn't smoke anything or do anything at that time. And I was like, cannabis, this ain't so bad.
LA sober?
Yeah.
Oh, you were in New York.
Yes, I was New York. I was just sober at that time. Now I guess I'm I don't know what.
Psychedelically sober?
I'm taking a break this year, but yeah, typically psychedelics.
Yeah.
That's the wave. But this year we're doing nothing.
Nada.
Ooh.
We're
like
planning
it.
we're planning on trying to have a kid this year, and
Yes.
it's been about 10 years of on and off psychedelic work, so we're testing it out.
Yeah, take a break.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been interesting.
What do they call that? Tolerance break?
Yeah,
Tolerate life sober.
Allegedly, cannabis fucks with your swimmers, so it makes them
Spin in circles.
swim in circles, which I'm like, I walk in circles when I smoke weed. I literally walk into a room and go, "What was I here to get?" And then
But then the one that makes it is the real champion.
they're the chillest. They're just like, "What's up?" They're 15 minutes late.
Do you know they did a study and they found out that our eggs actually, it's not the sperm that make it to the egg chooses the sperm.
That is
cool.
so wild. Yeah.
There's a study that they released. I was like, yeah, I like that narrative.
I like that a lot better.
It's like, you can come in, I guess.
A friend of ours, Jen and Sean, they're doing IVF right now. And so they can take the eggs and then they test them and whatever, and they pick the best one and they, fertilize it or whatever. But it would make sense that our own bodies would naturally do that anyway, that it would be like, oh, the egg would, of course, know.
Right.
Like, everything's so divinely and perfectly designed that, of course, it's going to be like, I don't know about any of these. Oh, that one, come forward.
It's like you're basically, comparing apples to oranges. You're like, all right, I guess this guy can come in.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know. Come on, just get in. Will you shut the door? Take off your shoes. That would be a funny bit. Like personifying the egg allowing the sperm in. Thank you.
Yes, it is a great bet.
Of acid for squares.
Yep, you got it.
Gonna do it.
Run with it, girl.
Running with it.
Yeah.
She's going to have a whole new set after this one.
Yeah, who knew the
I guess you can come in. Leave your bags by the door. I don't like a lot of clutter.
I know, right? It's such a masculine like concept of conception. Like, and then all the sperm like race and like fight each other to get to the egg, and then they just.
Of course, it's
there.
some sporting event.
Yeah,
There's got to be some like a fucking relay race.
Yeah, exactly.
Ew.
Yeah.
But you were so you were in the office looking at all these scans. Do you remember
Yeah.
where you were going with that?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I mean, it was really just that the almond clinic was super. I mean, it had very negative things to say about psychedelics.
Anti-drugs.
Yeah, but and I get it. I just didn't understand how they could possibly have that information. And this is like in 2013. But Daniel Amen says that his definition of ADHD is a lack of blood flow to the prefrontal cortex.
Oh yeah, the sleepy lobe.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah, I have a sleepy lobe, or I did have a sleepy lobe.
Yeah, so I think about that a lot, and I've since gone other places with ADD. I mean, I studied the Chinese medicine thinks it's mucus in the stomach. But you know, I would find all these studies. I found these Chinese studies that was like, this was 10 years ago. Every hour a child watched TV a day, their chance of developing ADHD increased by 10%.
I believe that. I bet if you looked back at like latchkey kids and kids of the 80s, 90s, we were in front of televisions.
Yeah.
There's got to be some correlation because everyone I know pretty much has ADD.
Well, that's what
we
I'm
all grew up
wondering.
on television.
I'm wondering if it's all the screens because it's essentially an artificial stimulus.
Yes.
That it's almost like if you're doing drugs and getting a dopamine hit from an outside source, when you stop the drug, the dopamine depletes because you're not naturally making it. And then all of a sudden you're essentially, you're going through withdrawals.
Right. And you're shorting that relationship.
Exactly. So I'm wondering if because there's so much external and artificial stimulus happening with all the screens and the phone and everything, that's why when we stop that's the lack of blood flow to the prefrontal cortex in this model. And that is what's causing everybody to essentially have ADHD. It's like because they aren't naturally creating that stimulation. I mean, I don't know, but I think about that. I've never really heard Gabor Mate, or at least I maybe heard it and forgot about it.
Yeah.
His saying it's childhood trauma, that would make a lot of sense. I don't know. I have no idea anymore. I'm just like, maybe there's just a lot of like super distractible people.
Yeah, maybe we're just overwhelmed. He also has ADD.
Oh, no way.
Gabor Mate, yeah. And I do believe the blood flow thing, because it's essentially atrophy of your brain, which essentially is a dementia issue as well. I mean, there's the tau plaques that everyone has talked about, the amyloids and everything that get built up at the end of the receptors in your brain that cause a blockage. So you're no longer firing these synapses between your, connections in your brain. So you're not making new neural connections.
That's plaques and proteins?
Plaques and proteins for so long have been one of the main causes and links to Alzheimer's and dementia.
How does it happen?
There's a lot of effects, a lot of things, environmental stress, diet, stress in general, genetics. But from what I understand, and I'm not a doctor, even though I play one on my podcast, I have a PhD in THC. I went to the school of the streets. A lack of community is a cause of it. Depression, what you're eating. Also, there's genetic and familial causes, but that makes up, from what I understand, like less than 1% of the cases of dementia and Alzheimer's being the most common form of dementia. But a really interesting article came out today or yesterday where they've discovered frequency and frequency's effects on the amyloid plaques in the brain. This is really groundbreaking and new, but from what I understand, what I read, they think that the sonar sound and frequency has the capability of breaking up the actual plaques.
I believe we're going to find out that sound can heal everything.
I believe that because you think about meditation and getting some of those, getting the right hertz.
Yeah.
It puts you in a meditative state.
Absolutely.
And there's also that sort of theory about dolphins and dolphin sonar and being able to detect when a woman is pregnant and being able to help put her in labor and their sound being connected to healing and how powerful their sound is, how they connect. And so people can chop it up to woo-woo science, but there are actual doctors that are looking into this.
Yeah, the Rife machine does that, heals with technology. There's a lot of science now backing this up. It used to be woo-woo, but now it's coming around. And I want to say something about the plaques and proteins, because that's it's fascinating. And one of the things is like plaques and proteins are what make your neurocanals, right? And if you have positive thoughts, if you have negative thoughts, allegedly it's like 10 times the plaques and proteins. So that's why it's really hard if you're like a negative person or start thinking negatively, you create these really deep neurocanals, from all this negative thinking. But one of the things with ayahuasca is they're finding out that it dissolves plaques and proteins and allows you to build new neurocanals. And
does?
Ayahuasca.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm sure they're going to find that with all psychedelics, because you even feel it when you work with them. It's sort of like your brain kind of melts, your thoughts kind of dissolve, And frequency makes a ton of sense, because we're made mostly of water. And look, if you put like a cup of water next to music or a vibration
or
machine,
even speaking to it,
right.
If you speak to it, it changes the actual structure of the water. So of course that's your vocal cords are creating sound waves. So
it's definitely, there's something to breaking down constructs, breaking down barriers, breaking down fixed thinking, and we were talking about breaking down like the molds that Hollywood puts you in, coming back to your authentic self. There's something around fluidity, returning to fluidity, returning to flow, returning to authenticity, and being a source of healing. And it makes sense, if the water stagnates, disease forms. If it flows, the river flows, no disease can form. I mean, you were just saying earlier, one of the most important things for you is movement.
Yeah.
Is moving. Like that's
flowing
the
is
best medicine.
so hard. Flowing requires you to have your heart completely open.
Yeah.
Surrendering to whatever. I mean, getting into a flow state requires surrender. And I will say, in Dr. Amen's defense, he has a daily or weekly news article. He did release something talking about there being possible beneficial effects of psychedelics.
Yeah, he's coming around recently.
He's starting to like open up that area a little bit. Obviously, for his own study and work, he's going to be a little bit more diligent on those aspects of what's good for the brain and what's not. But there are so many ways to like create neural pathways that don't involve psychedelics, but give you a psychedelic response. I like psychedelics. I just happen to enjoy them. But playing an instrument, travel, dancing, hanging out with your friends, doing something new, trying new food. Do you know when you eat new food? That's why there's like travel brain. When you go to a new country and you just eat new food, that makes you smarter.
Is that true?
Yes.
Whoa.
When you eat new food, it creates new neural pathways in your brain. It creates thoughts and ideas, and it invigorates you. Think about when you take a bite of something you've never had before, and you're just like, it's like discovery.
That's amazing.
So eat. I'm Sicilian. I eat everything, except for like a lot of animals, but I will eat everything. If you got cheese on the plate, I'm gonna eat the cheese. If it's sticky cheese, I'm like, I don't like it, but I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try everything. Shock my mouth.
It's interesting. They're just anything novel. Like they say that, you brush your teeth with the opposite hand, take a different road. It's almost like we're not supposed to do things repetitively, but society itself almost calls on repetition. And I think especially if you have ADHD, it can be sort of, structure can kind of help. It's weird. It's almost like we think structure is the thing that's going to help us, but it's also the thing that like traps us.
Yeah, it's like having a foundation is good for anything. Even a blow-up mattress has a little bit of a foundation. It's filled with air, but it still has something there's form to it. I don't think there's anything wrong with form. I think taking form and trying to eradicate the beautiful part of whatever is surrounding it is where it gets a little sticky. Because I think about art, and some of my most amazing people that I know, they're so artistic and flighty and fun and in the moment and exciting. And that's firing. That's your synapses in your brain. That's what's going on in your brain all day long. That's what's going on in your ceiling right now. It's what's going on in the universe with the stars.
Yeah.
And to what you were saying before, I think that's threatening to society that needs function, to society that needs, us to be a peg in the machine. And we do need a certain aspect of that, but we're learning now that if we opened our brains up more, if people were a little bit more understanding of the oneness and the collective consciousness, which is hard to access without certain understandings, we learned that is a more peaceful way to live, but it's difficult. Being a human is complicated.
Yeah, there's the one thing is that even in like a new way of being a new society, there's still going to be people that are very structured, and that's just how they are. But it does seem that it's really important to have a little bit of fluidity or a little bit of being able to create and do something. I feel like so many people that are left brain, they're like, oh, I'm not creative. I don't have that, which is a total lie. It doesn't make any sense. Like, yes, you might be more structured in the way that you do things, but every single person is we're creators. That's what we do here.
Right.
If you're making a meal, you're creating.
Yeah.
If you're doing anything, you're creating all the time. I recently started reading Rick Rubin's book.
Oh, it's so good. Creative Act.
Yes.
Girl, you read a lot, Jesse.
That book.
It is.
I love that
good.
book. That book is poetry.
Yes, it is poetry. You have to
read it.
Okay.
It's so, and it's one of the books, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's a book that you should have out on your table. You could pick it up, go to any page at any point in your life, and there will be something you can connect to.
There's so much wisdom in there on creativity and just a different way of looking at everything in a creative way. And even like the mistakes and the mental blocks and all these different things, how all of them are actually guiding you into like these beautiful new ways of creation. And I'm like, this man I get it. I get why people are like, oh, Rick Rubin, like go to his house. And who was it? The Chop Suey guy? What's the
System of a Down.
System of a Down?
Yeah.
That when he was creating with Rick Rubin, he like couldn't come up with something. And he's like, go grab a book off the shelf. And he literally just grabbed a book off the shelf and pointed at something. And he ended up using the entire line from the book in that song.
Yeah, I mean,
Tell me that's not that doesn't sound like ADD.
yeah. So
You're talking to an artist and he's like, go grab that book. Like, what?
yeah, so and that is like from my journey. I know it's your journey too. I'm sure where you've arrived to at this point, but like starting to work with like shamanic teachers, so I had concussions in my brain. That's what Dr. Amen found out.
Damn.
Yeah.
Concussions.
Like 3, football, jiu-jitsu, and snowboarding.
He says one of the 80% of mental illness is caused by physical trauma to the brain.
Yeah,
That's what he says.
So I had 3. And
Damn.
When I went to go work with the Shipibo tribe, I did 10 days of plant medicine, 4 different plant medicines: ayahuasca, wachuma, vilca, bobensana, and came back and got a brain scan again, and the concussions were gone. And that's what proved to me that this was real. Then I took my mom and
You went to Dr. Amen.
Dr. Amen was the first person I went to,
Okay.
yeah. And then later I went
to
to Dr. Hill, who I found on Rogan. The point is so that but of course, it's like, oh, it healed my brain. But actually what it did was like initiate me into some like spiritual awakening school where you pop out the other side and they tell you some shit, and then you come back and you're like, my whole life makes sense, but nothing makes sense. And ultimately I walked away being like, oh, like ADHD is like a hypersensitivity to like energies.
Yes.
And that essentially and I mean, it's first thought, best thought. And that intuition is like almost like in between the thoughts and the impulses. And once you can learn to ride it and just do, like, that's how then you can be creative. You just have to like surf it, not resist it and not try to put it in a box. And yeah, so now I believe it to be an evolutionary mutation of spiritual awakening. And that's what's happening actually.
I like that thought. I think that thought is probably rings truer than the other. And it could be a little bit of everything for everybody. It could be a little bit of that. It could be, ADD could be something else for somebody else. But I like that a lot.
But if you look at like brain coherence, like people's brainwave coherence, alpha, beta, delta, and we know like we are attuning to our environment, the cultural
stimuli,
right?
everything.
So
right, like you were talking back about TV and like how, and that's the formative stages of the brain. Like, why aren't we looking at that?
I'm just wondering if this is like a change from whether you called it from the left to the right, or some people say from the masculine to the feminine, like this sort of more receptive ADD, whatever this neurodivergent pathway, if it is, I don't know, like going in another direction. I don't know why. It could be the planets. It could be, yeah. What do you think?
I want to say something because it's reminded me because everybody's just staring at their phones all the time. And so it's like, it's just absolutely the worst. So a long time ago, Jesse was like, hey, I'm going to be having a show at the Venetian. I think it was the Venetian in Las Vegas. And she's like, do you want to come out? And so I was like, yeah, totally. And I'm driving with your assistant out there.
Liz.
Yeah,
Liz
with Liz.
Perez.
Hey,
Shout out to Liz.
Shout out
love
Liz.
She was great.
Yeah. But anyways, so I remember we were sitting at dinner with your manager.
Justin Hedbrook.
Yeah, with Justin. And I remember he took out his phone and started texting and you're like, excuse me, put your phone away. And he's like, I'm doing something for you. You're like, I don't care. You can have one meal with me without taking your phone out. Put your phone away. And I was like, oh, I love it. I was like, I feel like I'm the only one that's ever like, why is your phone on the table? Get it out of here.
Nice, Jesse.
Get it
It's
out of
because
here.
I don't want it near my balls. In my
I
pocket.
know this guy's
burning
don't have
off your
purses.
balls.
I know, but I understand it's rude to put on the table, but I don't want it near my balls.
That's true.
That's
but,
fair.
But
I put it on the
did
floor
think,
now.
I did
Now
think
I'm
it
like-
was really cool when you did that. talk about it all the time. Every time somebody's
We've
phone's
had this
like
exact
out.
conversation 4 times.
It's
Every
for
time.
real.
Yeah.
Our society, like, change is so fast and slow at the same time. And one time when I was on a really strong edible home alone with all the lights on because I thought the dark was trying to take me, I was watching WALL-E. Now, you know, WALL-E is dialogueless for 35 minutes.
Oh,
It's a great
yeah.
movie.
It's a beautiful film. A beautiful film about the beginning and end of humanity and that being a crossroads. And I realized that we are in WALL-E now. Everyone's in front of a screen. Everything is automated. Everything's delivered. You have everything you need, yet you are miserable. You are overweight. You're gluttonous. You're shapeless. You are conformed. You are a part of the system. You are no longer thinking for yourself. You're not even dressing for yourself. You're dressing like everybody else to fit into the thing, and joyless. And when all that changes at the end, when they come to, I don't want to ruin the film because I think everybody should see it if they haven't seen it. It's one of the greatest films of all time. They come back to life and growth happens and the green comes back and Mother Nature comes back. And so it's like, I don't know what got me on this idea of WALL-E, but it seems like our phones and technology take us out of these beautiful moments. And it's such a weird place to live. It's a weird place to live on a screen and other people's moments where they're living on a screen, posting about them living in a moment that they're going to post on a screen and somebody else looks at it on their screen and then they're missing the fucking precious moments they have left with their fucking family.
Right.
Walk by restaurants and the mother, the father, and the 2 kids, or the mother and the mother and the father, whatever your fucking makeup is of your family. Everyone is on a screen.
It kills me.
And COVID really fucking ruined it with taking the menus away. We need to bring the menus back.
Yeah.
Please.
No more scanning these stupid fucking codes.
No.
I don't want that anymore. I ask for menus now. And I ask people, like, can you put your phone face down or whatever? If I have a busy day and I know something's going to happen, I'll look on my phone.
Yeah.
But to walk around and see everyone glued to it terrifies me.
This is a story as old as time, you know, humankind inventing something to fix their problem or to escape sort of a universal suffering that is a part of the human experience. And with that invention, they create a new problem like Frankenstein.
Yes.
You know, and actually we're coming full circle. Typically it's avoiding death. Frankenstein is all about avoiding death.
Whoa.
And typically, death and suffering are the greatest teachers, but we avoid them and we try to beat death. We try to achieve immortality through technology. That's why people talk about uploading their consciousness and all these things. But the truth is that the soul is immortal. The truth is that the elixir of life is, and the truth of life is understanding that you are immortal and there is no death. It's almost like the illusion is so great that the worst thing in the world is actually maybe the thing that really is our graduation.
It's the greatest.
It's the greatest.
It's the greatest. It's the most beautiful thing.
And it's something that every single person goes through. What is that? There's like a saying that everyone's exactly the same at the end. Like we all end up in a grave.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't
we don't
matter.
get out of this. No one gets out of this.
No.
Not one of us
Nope.
has cheated death. We all bleed red and we die.
It's what unites us all. Yeah.
And why we're not focused on that. And you're right. Like humans, we've created all of these divisive tribal ideas that keep us all separated. Well, are you red or are you blue? Are you straight? Are you gay? And then they become these things that become weaponized.
Right.
And then even people as individuals have to really take accountability for being in these tribes that are separated from everybody else. You have to take real accountability.
Right.
What's the story you're telling yourself that's keeping you in a place from connecting with your neighbors and strangers?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing with the boxes is they feel good.
They do feel good.
When I was told you have ADHD by the doctor, I went, my God.
Identified.
Yes.
Seen.
Finally, I'm understood. It all makes sense.
A brotherhood.
I can be fixed. right? The box feels good.
Yeah.
The box feels like structure, but the box is antithetical to faith, to surrender.
Yes.
To which is, this is a faith-based game, whatever the fuck this is. This is a whole leap and the net will appear and run towards your certain demise, knowing everything will be okay in the end. You know, it's fucking crazy that it's gotten down to this point. And, I would love to actually ask you one thing, because you said a couple times, you talked about like, you would say the oneness. You would say, and I do believe, I mean, you said it with Wally, they disconnect from nature, they move into technology. And it does seem like there is a centralized intelligence that's older than time itself, something ancient, right? Something spiritual. And that we're disconnecting from that to avoid what that ancient thing has to teach us. Have you had an experience? You're obviously working with mushrooms. You're obviously getting so high on edibles that you think the darkness is encroaching on you.
It was, and it did, and I was like, rude. Back up, girl. I see you, but back up, you scare me.
What happened to you, Jessimae? What happened? What have you experienced? What's the craziest shit that's ever happened to you on mushrooms or working on a psychedelic? Have you gone to the other side? Has Mama come through?
Mama hasn't come through, but I took something once. I was at Just for Laughs years ago, and someone I was with had a brownie, and I took just a square. It's always good to know what the size of the square is and what the dosage is. Yeah. Highly recommend that, kids. Ask. And I didn't. I just was in a mood. I'm like, I'm going to take this. I didn't even ask him what it was. It was just in his bag. I'm like, ooh, a snack. And there's probably some fun stuff in it. So I took this little square. And then what proceeded to happen after that was like an 18-hour journey through time and space, where I saw every single moment in time in my lifespan separated like a card catalog. And I could go like this through it and point to a certain time in my life and access it. I saw the demise of humanity. I saw everyone as one. When it started to come on, I was at the Just for Laughs. It might have been the HBO party or the Netflix party, which is on this open courtyard patio. Everyone who's in the festival is there. Everyone's dancing. There's music. And it starts to kick in. And I'm looking and I see my gay friend across and he looks at me and I know what he's saying and he knows what I'm saying. And then I look and then everyone is looking at me. And then I realized everyone is me. And in the moment I realized everyone was me, I was shot into whatever the journey was at that moment. And I was like, oh my God, all these people are different, but they're all me. How can they all be me? And the guy I was with said I passed out and I had like, I don't know if it was a seizure, but I think I was in a space, like I was going through the threshold. You know what I mean? Like the threshold
we've seen that a lot.
Yeah, where you just are, your brain is like, what is the substance? Your brain is fighting the experience. I think I peed myself.
Whoa.
And he had to put his finger in my mouth.
Whoa.
Because I was clenched. And then I experienced, like I said, the destruction and the demise of humanity. I experienced conversations with people that felt so visceral and real. Rogan came through.
That's awesome.
Rogan came through clear as a bell, like a phone call. He goes, hey, chill out. You're good. I'll explain this to you afterwards. Just give me a call. And then he zooms out.
Wait, in real life?
No, in my journey.
That's amazing.
Because she's been on Rogan a bunch. So that's why I was like...
I also experienced, the oneness, I experienced over and over this oneness. And what was happening in a revolving pattern was I kept experiencing death over and over and over and over and coming to terms with it. And then the pain of it and releasing it and fighting it and surrendering to it and realizing that essentially for me, I thought was the way that life is for everyone. And what they struggle with the most is surrendering and letting go. And that the thing we all fear the most is death and our own death. But also, like we were talking before, there's so many other benign deaths that we experience that we don't realize compound into a larger form of grief for us for the entirety of our lives. And so when we're talking about something like the DSM book, categorizing grief, prolonged grief of a year being a diagnosable thing. Well, like you said, we're grieving our entire lives and we're experiencing these little deaths that we don't talk about, that we don't really honor or find a way to release and let go of.
There's a ritual.
There should be a ritual for every little thing. Like,
yes.
Why aren't we celebrating the death of who I was yesterday,
yes.
or the death of a thought I let go of?
Yes.
Girl, you let go of that negative thought you've been hanging on to forever. That thing where you keep telling yourself, or you started talking to yourself like the roommate that lives in your head who doesn't belong there and doesn't pay rent.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like the bitch that she is.
Right.
Let's celebrate you letting that girl die.
we have no rites of passage. We have no ritual. And I do think that psychedelics coming back into our culture, that is what it represents, because they were predominantly used for rites of passage. And rites of passage are used to mark change, because another name for death is change. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about the boxes we put things in, those are clinging to states in our evolution, identifying with them because it makes us feel safe, or it gives us our identity or some sort of ego. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then we have to kill it. The longer we identify it, then we have to kill it. It's the same way you're going this new incarnation with your podcast or whatever, like letting that go.
That's been the hardest part. I realized just now, another epiphany is that it's been taking me a long time because I haven't wanted to let it go, even though it's just this little podcast. But it's encapsulated a 10-year era of my life where my parents were alive and then I lost them, and I documented that. And so it feels like this time capsule for myself. And letting go is a constant struggle. I think for anybody, no one's mastered letting go. You just, I think, come to terms with the fact that you need to do it more often. It doesn't get any easier. And that's why it's like dealing with these little forms of letting go are important. Letting go of a shirt, a friend, an idea, a trend, an attitude. All of these things are a form of loss. And so I think it's taken me a while to sort of step into feeling like I'm good to let go. And that's why before I was talking about like, it's important to be awake to the universe and awake to your experience in it, in what the world and the universe and your friends and everybody, what the messages they have to relay to you. When we're numbed by drugs and by our phones, which by the way, put us in this trance. You're in a fucking trance when you're on this thing, just scrolling in a numb way and existing in a numb way. You're not going to be open to the beauty of life. You're not going to be open to all of these amazing synchronicities and moments that feel serendipitous, but they're right. You're right where you should be. Coincidence. I don't think coincidences exist. Coincidence?
We don't believe that either.
I don't believe in coincidences.
There are no coincidences. Don't. Yeah, everything is happening as it's supposed to. And I feel like the older that I get, the more I realize how much there is no coincidence. Everything is happening for a reason, and it's happening for us all the time.
Yes.
And I think when you're talking about, the death of, this time capsule that you have, it really is a perfect moment in time, this like 10 years encapsulation of so much change in your life. And can you tell us a little bit about the new podcast? Because when you were telling about us earlier, before we got on camera, my heart was just exploding. Can you tell us a little bit about what this new podcast is?
It's going to be a conversation with some people who I love and have manifested into my life, like Stamos and Steve Urkel and Dr. Amen will be on. I'm trying to get Gabor Mate. I'm shooting for the stars with everybody that has ever inspired me. So basically, I'm going to all the people who helped me heal during my grief, people who I may not even know I exist, books I've read, TV shows I've watched, music I listened to, food I ate. Because all of those are tools and resources in your healing process. And so this podcast is going to be a deep dive and exploration to all the things and people and places that I went and experienced that helped me get through the greatest, most profound loss of my life, with it being my mother and my father. But then also talking about all those other little smaller losses, breakups with your relationship, breakups with yourself, and dogs that you lose, relationships, and all the other things that we mentioned before. It's a way of tying in all these different moments of grief and entertaining those moments, realizing that there are ways to entertain your grief. And that's not to belittle it by any way. It's to let you know that there are ways to navigate through these different times of your life with some help. Yeah. There's so much help out there. And as I realized I was going to transform this podcast from Sharp Tongue into Dying Laughing, I started grabbing moments and quotes from movies and TV shows, and the universe started giving me all of these little, hey, this would be good. What about this? Doesn't this make you think of your mom? And what about this story? And oh God, didn't this bite of food remind you of that time when you were a kid? And You manifested John Stamos on your podcast because you had a poster above your bed that you kissed so much you wore a hole into it and your mom forced you to throw it in the trash when you were 15. There's no fucking coincidences in life.
No way.
And death feels like this horrible thing that happens to you, but it also happens for you. Grief happens for you. And so I want this podcast to be a guide for people going through any type of loss.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's truly amazing. I want to say that's super cool you're having Dr. Amin on.
Yes.
I feel like I was a little shady when I was talking about ADHD towards him.
No.
He changed my life, and his book, Healing ADHD, was like revolutionized.
Yeah.
I would not be sitting here without him. I have to ask, I know we're getting close to close up. Did you call Rogan after your trip?
Yeah, I did. I told him.
Like, you
What did he
popped
say?
He was like, oh, no way. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, you showed up in my journey and said you'd tell me things. So what do you know?
Did he
tell me what you know? No, he just laughed. He's like, you're crazy. Come on my podcast. You know, just come here. You're nuts. He's just like, you're crazy.
I love that he's the one that popped in to be like, hey.
And it was like up, like he was like up in the ceiling. He was like, hey, man, this feels crazy, but just call me after. I'll explain everything. Like maybe so the woman came through, but it was Rogan? You asked me about a woman.
Oh.
I haven't seen her yet.
Well, so this is the fascinating thing is that is a universal thing that we find across, like whether we're holding ceremonies or whether we're in ceremonies, they will use a voice of someone that makes you feel comfortable to speak to you.
They do this a lot.
Because we hold mushroom ceremonies. There, I said it. And we
I will be signing up.
It will be in the comment section. Somebody will be like, they always mention it.
But we mention it because we stare at people as they go through these experiences, and we hear this all the time. They used my mother's voice. They used this. I had Tanya one time. I was doing an ayahuasca experience, and I was kicking and screaming because I was like, oh no, I don't want to do this. Like, you know, everything's melting, and I'm like, I'm scared. And they use Tanya's voice and do, it's okay, baby. It's okay. I'm right here. Come on. I'm over here. Come to the side. Of course, she's puking a bucket next to me, but I'm like, you know, and it's not the first time they've done
you
that.
astro projected. That's a real love.
Crazy.
That's a woman astro projecting during her vomit sesh to be like, babe, I got you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're fine, hon.
Yeah. Jessimae, you are a goddess. You're a legend.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy that you came on the
Me
show.
too.
Seriously, I love you so much.
Yeah, my high expectations, and she hyped you up.
I did hype you. I've been hyping you up for a very long time.
I've loved this girl ever since I met her. Ever since she cracked her tailbone on that concrete floor, popping balloons for $4 and no flight cost. I'm like, this is my girl. Are you kidding me? I'm like, hi, I'm a horse trainer for disabled children. How are you?
What's not the love?
Oh my God. After that, going through so many different breakups and all the things,
we always stayed in touch. We always had that love for one another.
Yeah.
Cosmic
for sure.
Connected forever. I will be moving on the homestead.
Yes.
North Carolina. You always have a place with us.
I'm showing up with a covered wagon and 4 dogs probably at that point. Maybe an emu.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And probably Jeff. Josh? I'll bring him. And his henna tattoos.
Jesse, do you want to let people know how they can find you?
Yeah, sure. You can go to jessimae.com to check out all my tour dates, and a portion of my ticket sales to come see me live and my merch sales go towards Alzheimer's Association, the SoCal chapter, Southern California, and also Seth Rogen and Lauren Rogen's amazing foundation, Hilarity for Charity, which raises funds for families that are dealing with loved ones who have different forms of dementia, because it is a very expensive disease. Often families will go bankrupt, so HFC raises funds for those families. Very important. So when you come support me, a portion of that goes to those 2 foundations. So come see me live. And also check out Sharp Tongue, which will become Dying Laughing, maybe by this point, the time this came out.
Yeah, when this comes out.
And if you know anybody who's gone through any type of loss, send them my way. Stamos and I will be there to hold you.
Mommy and Daddy.
Mommy and Daddy will be there.
Jesse and Stamos. Oh, Jesse. Oh,
it fits.
It fits. All right. Well, Jesse, thank you so much for being on. We love you so much.
Yeah, we love
Blast
you,
off.
sister.
When do the aliens come?
That's right.
That's when the cameras turn off.
Where are they?
All right. If you've made it this far, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment. And make sure to go follow Jessimae on her new podcast and on her site so you can see her live stand up, because she's hilarious, as you can see. We love you so much. Until next time.
Love you all. Bye.
Bye.